We are happy to invite the gaming part of the session. Robert Gehorsam is the CEO of the Institute of Play. Is the first center in the world that actually took gaming as a pedagogical approach and created a school and a whole institute to try to develop gaming and the idea of gaming as the important pedagogical approach of a school. Thank you, Robert.
So I want to talk about games and learning. I'm not talking about video games necessarily, although that's part of it, but what we really can learn from games so that we can apply that back into education. A little bit about the Institute. We're a nonprofit in New York, and we really are looking at engagement as the necessary, not sufficient, but necessary starting point for what it means to learn and thrive in the world today. So really at the core of what we do is we try to design experiences that make learning irresistible. One of the things you see when you come to the schools we work with and the programs we run is that kids can always articulate to you why they are learning something, why it actually matters. And I'd ask all of you to think back to middle school or high school and say, oh, I knew why I was learning that. I don't see any hands up for that one. And so we use games and play and those principles to really do all of our design, whether it's in a digital form or not. And our goal, the impact we want to make, is to make sure that kids can really thrive as active citizens in the world to come. So that world that is, well, it's here today, but we feel like it's also part of the future, pressing on it, is just really different. We really don't know what they need to know specifically. Life is a little more unpredictable. And so teaching, education as a whole, it's like you're always aiming just behind the target. You're not really sure. So what you really have to do is continue that process that's strong in elementary school and disappears in middle and high school, which is learning how to learn. And particularly developmentally, that takes on new meaning in middle and high school, and that is where we do a lot of our work. Around that is these, if you're going to learn how to learn, are some skills that are not part of any formal, explicit academic program, but which actually universities and employers and common sense tells us are really important. What are we going to need beyond specific domain knowledge? We need to work in a team. We need to communicate verbally or, verbally and writing in whatever way. We need to plan, organize. These are all obvious things, but where do you sign up for that class? I don't think it's that class. And I don't think when it comes to knowing, have I mastered those skills, I don't think that test is measuring those skills. So something's got to give. Some new paradigm has to happen. Certainly technology is going to play a new role. And actually, if you think about games, and we'll talk about this in a second, games actually embody a lot of those things. And the reason we came into being as an organization was realizing that kids' passion for games was actually leading to their developing competency, and I would actually say mastery in many cases, of those specific skills. And so how do you put that into an academic context? Well, one way you want to avoid doing it is this, right? Just it's basically treating games as a new digital textbook, but not changing the context. And so our work really focuses on that. And the first instance of that is this school in New York, which is actually part of the iZone, and a very interesting example of it, called Quest to Learn. Now, Quest to Learn opened in 2009. It's a middle school, about 100 kids per grade. We're now through 11th grade, and so we'll graduate our first class next year. And a few things about it. No surprise, it's rooted in the principles of game design, by which I mean the way that pedagogy happens, as well as the actual materials that get used. What's particularly sort of one of the key things here is that the teachers are trained as designers. I could call it D-I-L-E, as dials, designers of irresistible learning experiences. We teach them how to be game designers. And if you're a teacher, right, you've come out of a school of ed as someone who's basically told to be an implementer of someone else's ideas and someone else's methodology, and we break that. So we turn teachers into designers. To that extent, Technology is just a tool. And these other points, I think, are you can read them, and they'll become evident in a second. We've already talked about this. So now we get to broken fonts. What are these principles? Now, we don't have a step-by-step cookbook. What we have are principles that come out of what make games so fascinating and so compelling, which is that everyone is a participant. Learning feels like play. That things are interconnected. We do have a focus on systems thinking in what we do. That learning, it happens by doing, and we've heard all day that learning has to be rooted in activity. And that failure is reframed as iteration is an important one. This is a generation, a game-playing generation that is really used to not winning the game 80 to 90% of the time. That's the fun of it, right, is the persistence and the trying. And that games also provide feedback that's immediate, it's ongoing. You always know how you're doing, as opposed to waiting till the end of the semester to get a grade. And that challenge is constant. And one of the brilliant things that a good game does is adjust the level of challenge to keep things motivating enough to keep you moving forward, but not so hard to frustrate you and not so easy as to be boring. It is an art to design. So I'd actually like to give you a video here of what challenge being constant looks like at Quest to Learn.
I need my game master to please retrieve a bin of blocks, and I need my supply master to retrieve your supplies.
Constantly challenging kids in the classroom affects learning depending on the challenge. And I think at Quest, which is something that really drew me to Quest and what we do really well, is that in each class we challenge them in different ways. So they don't always know what to expect, which is totally different than the traditional classroom, which I've never seen any other school do or do well.
Yeah, my worthless turn. No, wait, no, okay. You know what? We're done. You could borrow mine. Angus, roll one more time. Get a six.
No, I think I'm winning because
Six is the ball. No!
Caterpillar is a board game. It uses dice and it uses colored blocks, and you can play it with either 2, 3, or 4 people. The goal is to create the longest caterpillar. But when you record the dice rolls, you are looking for something called the bomb. So the bomb is the most frequently rolled number, and as you play, you figure out that the most frequently rolled numbers are towards the middle, so you're 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you try to build as much around it as possible so that you can get more blocks. But in the end, if that number blows, all of your caterpillar pieces go with it. So it's using skill, but it's also using chance.
It depends on who the players are you're playing with, because some are really good and some, are like me, like beginners, because I usually don't win every round of Caterpillar that I play. I usually win out of 5 only once or twice. But yeah, it depends on the person. It doesn't depend on the game, but on the person.
When you have problems that are just out of your reach in school or in life, you learn how to roll with the punches and figure out, okay, I have this skill set, and I just learned this from this past challenge, and now this past challenge is solved, but I have this other challenge over here. And if it's constantly changing and you have these skill sets that are also adapting and changing with you, giving them things that are just out of their reach requires them to build that mental muscle. It strengthens something, whether it's your mind or physically. And if we gave them challenges that just met where they are, their toolbox, their mental toolbox would never grow.
It's also fun building out your caterpillar and seeing how much land you can preserve for yourself. I always enjoy conquering the most land and feel that I've really accomplished something.
There's more, and you can see many of these videos on the web. Actually, for each of these learning principles, there is a 3 or 4 minute video. Caterpillar actually is one of about 100 games that we've designed, mostly paper games, board games. In our work with Quest to Learn, in many cases, teachers have helped us, but they all have the benefit of having been used in classrooms now for up to 6 years. So it's a wonderful opportunity and resource. So how are we doing? Not on time, because I'm being told that, but at Quest to Learn. So we always expected that the kids would do pretty well academically on the tests and all that other stuff. We were really interested in these other things. And so far, the work is validating that. First of all, students and teachers are really engaged at the school. Some of the highest student attendance in the city, some of the highest teacher retention in the city. The parents report their kids come home and are just motivated and can talk about what they've learned. They do well, as you can see in the Math Olympiad, which is a New York City math contest. And the kids win, by the way, because they collaborate with each other. They don't treat it as a solo sport. And no one else kind of thought to do that. And it's a very diverse school economically, ethnically, in every way. But some independent research has been done that does assessments, has built some new assessments for these so-called 21st century skills. And the early results are very intriguing. So one of the things that we're seeing is that the middle school kids at Quest to Learn have twice the rate of growth in their learning in these skills that are listed here in 1 year as a college student in America does over 4 years. So we think we're on track to really show how this sort of game-like learning and game-like teaching can really transform what the school experience is. But the key part, and I alluded to this earlier, is empowering the teachers. And so part of what we've done is develop a new teacher professional development program, which over time will expand into schools of education as well. And we've been doing this for about a year, not just with teachers at Quest to Learn, but refining what we have done there and taking it out all over the country, as well as internationally. And it's a blend, what's called a blended program of workshops and online. And so here's the appropriate verbiage about what we're doing. It's empowering teachers as designers, and the goals are really to help them transform their own teaching practice and results for their teachers. And the results have been really good. This is self-reported data so far, but as you can see, it's really high. And one of the really important things, and I don't know how true this is outside of the US, but teachers look to their peers, to other teachers in their own schools or their districts for resources, for support, for information. And all of these teachers have, actually the one thing that's not in here is about 95% of the teachers say they intend to share this new practice, this new methodology in their district with their other teachers and spread this virally that way. So are we perfect? No. And so we try to live our own principles of failure reframed as iteration. We continually take what we're doing, learn. We're not rigid in our approach. Sometimes we take elements of project-based learning, sometimes of expeditionary learning. And it covers sort of some of the most powerful learning moments at Quest to Learn. So without further ado, I'll just show this. No, I'm not going to show that yet. I'll show this.
A Rube Goldberg machine is complicated for a simple task.
Boss Level is a week where we work with our home base to complete a project by the end of the week, and we also don't have homework or any other of our usual classes.
If you walk into a Boss Level classroom, you're not seeing really a classroom. All of the desks and tables are pushed aside. You're seeing a lot of materials of all different sorts that are kind of strewn around. You see a lot of sixth graders either tinkering or in a group brainstorming, possibly sketching. It's a lot of creativity and innovation going on in the space.
We could do like something like this if we had like a hold.
How about this one?
They're tiny.
No, we already have a marble. Yeah, we're mixed through here. We are in the wrong place. Wait. Make it look cool. We don't need 20 people.
My favorite part about Boss Level is the actual building phase. When kids fail during the creation of Rube Goldberg and then they iterate, They are really learning to take risks.
Failure is really bad, but I guess if you have a good attitude, then you can always make it what you wanted it to be and not to get frustrated. So failure is not so bad if you know how to fix it.
Failure, reframed as iteration, means when you fail, just try again.
Students really take a lot of ownership for the machines that they create. Their advisor is in the room, but their advisor really is not helping to do any of the building or even creating. They're really just there as an adult to help facilitate and to make sure that things are going smoothly and safely. So if you walk into a boss level classroom, you really see the students as teachers, as learners, as innovators, and they are really helping each other through the iteration process. They are creating this blueprint for their machine in the beginning. They're putting it to the test. They're watching it. They're seeing where the kinks are, where they need to iterate, and they are going through this process really on their own. I think that's also a really great thing about the process, to be able to watch students move through this system on their own and actually succeed at it.
Home base is, I think it might be a little bit like a homeroom.
To be able to see students really incorporate things that they learn in home base and model that during the building is really a great process. One of my home base students, who's in 8th grade now, talks all the time about how he feels that Rube Goldberg was what really brought us together as a home base. So it's a really great moment for us.
Since you have to work together and you spend a lot of time together in a classroom or in a confined space, that you really get to know one another and how one another works.
If you're doing a Rube Goldberg machine, you need to have a lot of teamwork so that one person isn't just working on the front and like a million people are working on the middle. You need to have an even share of everything.
Having gone through the Rube Goldberg process with my own home base, it really proved to be beneficial for many reasons. I mean, not only are they implementing skills that they've learned in the classroom, but as a home base, you really see them bond and really build. They're really kind of stuck in a room for days at a time, and they have to really learn how to get along, how to share ideas, how to respect ideas. Teamwork is probably the most important facet of Rube Goldberg building.
If one person makes one part of the machine and another person makes another part of the machine, if they don't work together, those parts won't work together either, and it probably will not complete its goal.
I don't think I have to say anything else. Thank you very much.